Tiflo Vision Plus.
Series, Famous People with Visual Impairments. Helen Keller's Life Story. Scene 1, A Silent and Dark World. The sun of a warm June in 1880 illuminated the peaceful countryside of Tuscumbia, Alabama, as Helen Adams Keller was born. Her first 19 months were a whirlwind of sensory discoveries typical of a baby: the gentle caress of her mother, Kate, the protective firmness of her father, Captain Arthur H. Keller, the bright colors of the garden flowers, and the symphony of sounds that filled the house. Helen was a curious and active child, exploring her small universe with contagious joy. She babbled her first words, pointed enthusiastically at objects, and responded with smiles and giggles to familiar voices. Her parents watched her with the love and hope that accompany every child's growth, imagining a future full of possibilities. However, the fragility of that sensory world became terribly evident in the winter of 1882. A sudden and unknown fever swept over little Helen, plunging her into a state of high temperature and confusion. Her parents stayed by her side, night after night, praying for her recovery. Slowly, the fever subsided, but it left behind a devastating aftermath. Helen no longer reacted to sounds, her eyes remained fixed and expressionless. The illness had deprived her of sight and hearing, plunging her into absolute silence and darkness. For a child who had barely begun to understand the world around her, this sudden sensory deprivation was catastrophic. The familiar world vanished, replaced by an incomprehensible void. Frustration soon took hold of her. Unable to communicate or understand what was happening around her, Helen became increasingly irritable and prone to tantrums. Her cries echoed through the house, filled with an anguish that her parents did not know how to alleviate. She felt trapped in an invisible prison, isolated from the world and the people who loved her. The cheerful and curious child had transformed into a desperate little creature, whose only way to interact with her environment was through physical frustration. Her parents, heartbroken, desperately sought a solution. They consulted doctors, but no one seemed able to offer them real hope. Most suggested that Helen would live a life of isolation and dependence. However, Kate Keller, Helen's mother, refused to accept this bleak prognosis. She read about cases of deaf-blind children who had achieved some degree of education and communication, and a spark of hope ignited in her heart. Determined to find help for her daughter, she contacted the Perkins Institution for the Blind in Boston, initiating a path that would forever change Helen's life and the world's perception of the capabilities of people with disabilities. This first chapter of Helen's life was a testament to the cruelty with which fate sometimes strikes, but it also laid the foundation for a story of incredible resilience and a mother's unwavering determination. Scene 2, The Arrival of a Teacher. Kate Keller's letter arrived at the Perkins Institution, where it caught the attention of Michael Anagnos, the director. Aware of the challenges involved in educating a deaf-blind child, Anagnos turned to a young graduate of the institution, Anne Sullivan. Anne herself had experienced blindness in her childhood and, through surgery and fierce determination, had partially regained her sight. Her own experience had endowed her with deep empathy and an intuitive understanding of the obstacles Helen faced. Despite her youth and being aware of the magnitude of the task, Anne accepted the challenge. On March 3, 1887, Anne Sullivan arrived at the Keller home in Tuscumbia. For Helen, Anne's arrival was initially just another intrusion into her world of darkness and silence. She did not understand who this strange woman was who tried to touch her and manipulate her hands. The first few weeks were a battle of wills. Helen, accustomed to expressing herself through tantrums and physical force, resisted Anne's attempts to impose discipline and order. Anne, on the other hand, was inflexible in her determination to break through the barrier of incommunication. She knew that the only way to reach Helen was through touch, her only link to the outside world. With infinite patience, Anne began to spell words into the palm of Helen's hand. First, simple objects like doll, water, and cup. Helen initially did not understand that these sequences of letters had meaning. For her, they were just strange games that Anne played on her hand. Frustration resurfaced, and Helen's tantrums became increasingly intense. There were times when even Anne, a strong and determined young woman, felt on the verge of despair. However, she remembered her own struggle to overcome darkness and refused to give up. One crucial day, Anne took Helen to the water pump in the garden. As the cold water flowed over one of Helen's hands, Anne spelled the word water into the other. In that instant, something magical happened. For the first time, Helen felt the connection between the physical sensation of the water and the letters Anne traced on her hand. A sudden understanding illuminated her mind. She repeated the word water, spelling it clumsily into Anne's hand. It was a moment of epiphany, the dawn of a new world for Helen. From that day forward, her thirst for knowledge became insatiable. She wanted to know the name of every object she touched, every person she felt nearby. Anne worked tirelessly, spelling word after word into Helen's palm, opening the doors of language and thought. Anne Sullivan's arrival not only transformed Helen's life but also demonstrated the power of patience, perseverance, and the unwavering belief in human potential. Scene 3, the world opens up. Following the breakthrough at the water pump, Helen's world expanded exponentially. Every new object, every new person, every new experience came accompanied by its name, patiently spelled out by Anne in her hand. Helen absorbed knowledge with astonishing avidity. She learned the Braille alphabet, which allowed her to read and write. Anne read books to her and explained the world around her through tactile descriptions and sign language in her hand. Helen's innate curiosity blossomed in this new environment of communication. She asked questions constantly, exploring the relationships between things and ideas. Anne not only taught her language but also discipline and social norms. Helen had grown up without restrictions, due to her family's pity and frustration at her incommunication. Anne, aware that Helen needed to integrate into the world, insisted on obedience and courtesy. There were struggles and moments of tension, but the love and trust that developed between teacher and student were fundamental to overcoming these challenges. Anne became Helen's eyes and ears, but also her friend, her guide, and her greatest advocate. As Helen grew older, her thirst for learning deepened. She wanted to access formal education, like any other child. Thanks to Anne's tireless dedication and the support of her parents, Helen entered the Perkins Institution and later Radcliffe College, a prestigious women's institution affiliated with Harvard University. It was a path full of obstacles. Helen had to read textbooks in Braille, attend classes where Anne spelled the lectures into her hand at an astonishing speed. Understanding abstract concepts was a constant challenge, but Helen's determination was unwavering. Her presence at Radcliffe was an inspiration to many. She demonstrated that physical limitations were not insurmountable barriers to intellect and the human spirit. Her hard work and exceptional intellectual ability earned her the respect of her professors and peers. In 1904, Helen Keller graduated from Radcliffe College, becoming the first deaf-blind person to earn a bachelor's degree. This monumental achievement was a testament to her incredible perseverance, Anne Sullivan's unconditional dedication, and the transformative power of education. Helen's graduation opened new doors and demonstrated to the world that people with disabilities could achieve goals that were previously considered impossible. Her story began to transcend the borders of Tuscumbia, inspiring people around the world. Scene 4, A Voice for the Silent. After graduating, Helen Keller dedicated herself to a life of activism and writing. Aware of the difficulties she herself had faced, she became a fervent advocate for the rights of people with disabilities. She traveled extensively, giving lectures and sharing her story with audiences around the world. Her eloquence and indomitable spirit moved people, challenging traditional perceptions of disability and advocating for inclusion and equal opportunities. Helen not only spoke for deaf-blind people but also for other marginalized groups. She became involved in social movements that fought for the rights of women, workers, and people living in poverty. Her own experience of overcoming adversity had endowed her with a deep empathy for the suffering of others and an unwavering belief in social justice. Through her books, Helen also reached millions of people. Her autobiography, The Story of My Life, published in 1903, became a bestseller and was translated into numerous languages. In it, Helen narrated with frankness and lyricism her childhood, her encounter with Anne Sullivan, and her journey towards education and understanding of the world. Her writings were a source of inspiration and hope, demonstrating the ability of the human spirit to triumph over the most extreme difficulties. Anne Sullivan continued by her side as her inseparable companion, interpreting the world for her and providing constant support. Their relationship transcended that of teacher and student, becoming a deep friendship based on love, respect, and mutual admiration. Together, Helen and Anne became a symbol of hope and determination for people of all conditions. Helen Keller's work had a significant impact on the way society perceived and treated people with disabilities. Her activism contributed to the creation of organizations and laws that promoted their rights and inclusion. Her life demonstrated that disability does not define a person's potential and that, with the right support and personal determination, seemingly insurmountable barriers can be overcome. Helen became a powerful voice for the silent, demonstrating that even in darkness and silence, the light of knowledge and the strength to change the world can be found. V. Scene 5, A Legacy of Hope. Helen Keller passed away on June 1, 1968, at the age of 87. Her life was a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the transformative power of education, perseverance, and compassion. Throughout her long and fruitful existence, Helen overcame obstacles that seemed insurmountable and became one of the most inspiring figures of the 20th century. Her legacy endures to this day. Her story continues to motivate people around the world to face their own challenges with courage and determination. The organizations that bear her name continue to work tirelessly to support deaf-blind people and those with other disabilities, promoting their inclusion and rights. The relationship between Helen Keller and Anne Sullivan is a paradigmatic example of the impact that a dedicated teacher can have on a student's life. Anne's patience, perseverance, and unwavering belief in Helen's potential were fundamental to unlocking her mind and allowing her to achieve extraordinary accomplishments. Their story reminds us of the importance of empathy, dedication, and the power of human connection in the process of learning and personal growth. Helen Keller demonstrated that physical limitations do not define a person's potential. Her life was a constant pursuit of knowledge, a struggle for equality, and a celebration of the human capacity to overcome adversity. Her voice, silenced to sounds but powerful in its message, continues to resonate in the hearts of those who believe in a more just and inclusive world. Moral: true disability resides in the spirit, not the body. Perseverance, education, and human connection are the keys to overcoming any obstacle and reaching our full potential. Even in the deepest darkness and the most absolute silence, the light of knowledge and the strength of the human spirit can shine brightly, illuminating the path for oneself and for others. Helen Keller's story teaches us that hope and determination are unstoppable forces that can transform lives and change the world.
If you found this information interesting, please give us a like, subscribe to the channel, and select the notification bell so you don't miss our upcoming videos. Thank you.